got it down. And we'll just talk about where we are right now. So we're right here at the end. We've got like 3 weeks left. So that'll be it for this class. This is Tsadi, so here, let's do these three right here. You have Tsadi, which we talked about last week. We have Quph, which we talked about last week, and then the new one this week is Reish. Okay, and the Reish is an R, but instead of doing in Spanish, you roll it at the front of your tongue. Reish. In Hebrew, in Israeli, you roll it from the back of the tongue, so it's almost a G sound. So it's a Reish from the back. Reish, Reish. So kind of hit a soft G, and then flutter the back of your tongue a little bit, like you would do it's a little trill back there. So it's Reish. Okay. So we have everyone say Tsadi, Quph, Reish. Again, Tsadi, Quph-Reish. Tsadi, Quph-Reish. With the Reish, when you hear an Israeli talk, when they're talking in English, you will hear it. It's almost like a baby R sound because they're used to doing that roll from the back. So where our Massachusetts people would say "pop the cop," right? So they would have a cop. They almost swallow the R. So when you hear like an Israeli ambassador or minister speaking English on the news or whatever, you will hear that little R, that it's almost like a baby trying to say ah, because they're trying to use an American pronunciation, but they have that ingrained in them. Growing up speaking Hebrew, they have that little back there ingrained in them. So you'll hear that, listen for it from, when you hear an Israeli speaking on the news or anything like that, you'll hear that little guttural sound from the back. The numbers 90, 100, 200. So right here, Yud is 10. Remember, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then you go into the tens, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and now it goes to the hundreds. 100, 200, 300, 400. Okay, so those are your jumps. So you have, in effect in Hebrew, because the Hebrew letters are the numbers, so in Hebrew you actually have the first decimal system. Okay, you go up to 10, then you use the tens, and then you go to hundreds. Okay, so again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 200, 300, 400. And that's the end of their numbering system. So what happens, because we know that there are bigger numbers than 400. So what do? Well, they will either like take an aleph and make that 1,000. Okay? Or they will use a combination of the letters to come up with their numbers. If they're using a combination of letters to come up with numbers, then what? They're also making words. Words make numbers, and numbers make words. And they go back and forth. Okay? And this is where gematria comes from. What is gematria? Gematria is the study of the relationship between the numbers and the words. Every word has its set of letters, right? And every letter has its number. Therefore, when you're putting a word together, you're actually putting a mathematic problem together. Okay? When you're putting a number together, when you put numbers together, you're also making words because you're putting letters together. And it becomes very, very interesting because there is a science to it, and this is one of the ways that we know that the AlephBet was created by God Himself, because human genius, as smart as we think we are, could not come up with this, could not conceive of this. Because when you have two words that have the same mathematical sum, that is, you take the letters and you add them together, the numbers, and you add them together, they come up with the same sum. This tells you that there is a relationship between that word and the other word. So one of the examples is the word Mashiach, which is Messiah, and the word Nachshon, which is the serpent. They have the same equation. They come up with the same sum. They add up. When you put the letters together, they come up with the same sum. So there's a relationship between the serpent and the Messiah. And we say, well, how's there a relationship between the serpent and the Messiah? I didn't say it was a good relationship. There's a relationship there. Is there a relationship between the serpent and the Messiah? Yes, there is. Not a good one, but right there, boom, in Genesis chapter 3, at the fall. What does God say to Adam and Chava concerning the serpent? He tells the serpent what? That he will send one who will crush his head. He will bruise his heel, but the one that he sends will crush the serpent's head. And then, just a second, then when we get into the wilderness and the children of Israel sin by complaining, and what does God send into the camp? Snakes. And so when Aaron and Moshe intercede on behalf of Israel because too many people are dying, what does God tell Moshe to do? Make a bronze serpent and put it up on a stake. Correct? And if they look up to the serpent, strange, sounds kind of pagan, you look up to the serpent and you will be healed. Yeshua then references that in John chapter 3. Right? As Moshe lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up. Speaking concerning what? His execution. Okay? So is there a relationship between Mashiach and Nachon, the serpent? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Basically what happens, what the idea there is that the Mashiach takes on the representation. That is, that he takes on the evil, the sin, the wickedness. He takes this to himself. He who knew no sin became sin for us, that we might be called the righteousness of God. Okay, question?
I just wondered also if the relationship had something to do with both Jesus and the devil are referenced as the morning star. Does that also have something?
There are all kinds of connections. Yes, there are all kinds of connections there. Welcome. How are you doing? That's okay. There, yes, where you see these relationships. Once you begin to see these things, this is a very cool thing. Once you begin to see it, you cannot unsee it, and you'll begin to see connectors everywhere. For example, once you get into when you get into the tree of life and you start studying the kingdom, Malchut, and what are the principles of the kingdom, the principles of Yesod, the foundation, the principles of Netzach, the victory, the principle of Hod, the glory, the principle of Tiferet, the beauty. Once you start seeing these things, once you start building this foundation and you start seeing these things, you will see them everywhere, and you will see them in the order of the tree of life. One of the I think it's in First or Second Chronicles, I don't remember, but the prayer of Melech David the king, when he's consecrating the articles for the temple, and it starts off, yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory, and he starts going through the tree of life. We quote this prayer of David's every Shabbat, basically saying that everything that we have is yours. When we're giving to God, everything that I have, I say, everything that I have is from your own hand, and you have given it to me. Basically saying what? You gave it to me, now I'm returning it to you. Okay? And so that's the purpose of the psalmist, to help us to understand that we do not own anything here. But it is amazing how when he goes through the when he begins his prayer, he goes through these attributes of the tree of life. The same thing is true of the Lord's Prayer in the book of Matthew. How does it end off? For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Okay, these are the beginning steps of the tree of life. He gets into Netzach when he says, Our Father which art in heaven, holy is your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done. That's Netzach. And we see him in his prayer in Gethsemane, before he's going to his execution. We see him go from Netzach to Hod. Netzach is confronted with a great test, and Hod is complete surrender to the will of God. And so there in the garden, we see him move from Netzach to Hod, confronted with the great test. He goes to prayer. What does he pray? If it is your will, let this cup pass from me. That's Netzach. Saying what? When most of us are confronted with a great test, the normal prayer, not everybody, but most people, the normal prayer is what? When you're going through a difficult time, what? Get me out of here. Right? And so, but even while he's doing this, even while he's in this great turmoil and suffering, he's teaching us how to move, how to grow, how to climb the tree, so to speak. So he starts off with what? If it is possible, remove this cup, remove the test from me. But then how does he end the prayer? Not my will, but your will be done. That's Hod. And by the way, Hod is the realm of the prophets. I tell the class, that's where you get your prayers answered. We get some prayers answered, but a lot of times we feel like we don't get our prayers answered. You get your prayers answered in the attribute of Hod, which is complete surrender. That's where God answers your prayer. This is where the prophets got their prayers answered, as the scripture speaks to, I believe the book of Yaakov, James, speaks to Elijah, who was a man of like emotions. He was a human being. He has the same emotions, the same feelings, the same temptations as all of us. Saying that we look at these people as being these giants, and I can never be like that. You know, how could I ever be a David? How could I ever be a Sarah? How could I ever be, one of these great people in the Bible? And the scripture reminds us, no, these are human beings just like you and me. They have the same passions, the same emotions, the same feelings, the same everything. There's no temptation that is new to mankind. Everyone is tested. But it says that he got his prayer answered, so that when he called for it not to rain, God answered his prayer and sealed up the heaven. And then later on, when he called it for it to rain, remember Mount Carmel? The coming down of the fire? He called down fire from heaven and the fire came down. He called for rain to come and restore Israel, and the rain came. Saying that what? He got his prayers answered. What gets a person's prayers answered? Very simply this: absolute surrender to the will of God. Conforming to the will of God. In the song, in the old hymn, Blessed Assurance. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine, oh what a foretaste of glory divine. And the second verse says, perfect submission, thank you. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I, in my Savior, am happy and blessed. Watching and waiting, looking above. Right? So basically saying this, what is perfect submission? What does that mean? There's a bridge that goes from Netzach to Hod. Giving you some tree of life stuff here. There's a bridge that goes from Netzach to Hod. And that bridge is called exactly that. Perfect submission. It is when we are completely and wholly submitted to God that's where miracles take place. That's where he really begins to answer prayer. He's a good father. I'm not saying that he doesn't answer our prayer. But we know what? A lot of times he says what to us? Wait or? No. Why? Because people say, well, I don't understand because I asked in Jesus' name. Well, what does that mean, that I asked in Jesus' name? When I ask in the name of a rabbi, what I'm saying is that this is the desire of the rabbi. In the Talmud, you will see the rabbis debating back and forth. And it will say, such and such a rabbi said, in the name of such and such a rabbi. And sometimes it'll go 3 or 4 rabbis, so they're quoting back several generations. That's such and such a rabbi. The reason why is because the rabbi who's making the statement, who's making the argument, was a student of this rabbi, so he's quoting from his own rabbi. My rabbi used to say this, but he got it from his rabbi, who got it from his rabbi. Okay? So when I'm saying, so the reason why they say that is because a student never speaks on his own. He never speaks under his own authority. The student speaks under the authority of the rabbi. So he would say, my rabbi used to say this. My rabbi used to say this. And his rabbi said it. And his rabbi said it. So that builds up the authority of the statement. The same thing is true with praying in Yeshua's name. It's not a tag-on, you know, that you add at the end of the prayer, some magical incantation that you add to the end of a prayer, and because I said in Jesus' name, well then that's going to make God hear me, and he's going to answer my prayer because I said in Jesus' name. No. What you're saying when I say in Yeshua's name, or when I say in Jesus' name, what I am saying is, I am saying this is the will of him. This is his will. I'm speaking in the name of my rabbi. It's that philosophy that's taking place. This is why Yeshua said, when you ask in my name. That is under his authority. Now, I'm a married man. I see a good-looking girl out there. Okay? She's pretty, she's cute, what have you. And I decide, maybe I want her. Well, I'm going to pray about it. You'd be surprised. As a pastor, you would be surprised how many stories like this I have heard. Well, I'm going to pray and ask God if I should stay married to her or if I should go after her. So what? You pray in Jesus' name. Is that kind of a decision going to carry the weight of the rabbi? Of Yeshua? Is that his will? No. That's foolishness. But this is the way people do. They think that because they tag that on at the end, like some magical incantation, that tugs at God's heartstring and it's going to change him, and he's going to change his mind, and he'll say, well, okay, this one time I'll let you go. No, it doesn't work that way. When you're praying in Yeshua's name, you're basically saying, by the authority of Yeshua, by the authority of the Messiah, by the authority of my rabbi, I'm asking for this. Therefore, what? You better be certain that what you're asking for is the will of your rabbi. Because the rabbi will go to the judge and say, I don't know what he's talking about. That's not my will. That's not the way I want it to go. Kind of on that order. Do you understand? Everybody with me? So how did Eliyahu get his prayer answered? He was in confirmation with God. He was conformed. He was justified. I think we talked about this a while back. Justification. When in typing class, those of you who took typing class, I don't know if they still teach this stuff or not. But in typing class, what does justified mean? You've heard it say, you know, I grew up, we were taught justified means just as if I've never sinned. Just as if I've never sinned. Okay? Justified. But not really. Okay? Justified, you're in typing class, and you're typing out a letter, justified means, so this is justified left. This is called, on Word, you see the little icons up there where it's everything's on the left side, then you have this one here in the middle where everything is lined up on both sides. This is justified center. And then you have where everything is this way, and this is justified right. That's the Hebrew side. Justified right. Justified means to line up. The column lines up. Okay? So if I'm writing a formal letter, it will be justified left. A newspaper column or a magazine column will be justified center. So it lines up on both sides. Why? Because they have that. They have those bars that they have to fill. This is why sometimes in the newspaper you'll see the words, kind of the letters separated, spread out, because they have to fill that space. And then justified right. This would be like in formal letter writing, where you put your name and your address and the date and everything. That would be on the justified right. Okay. So justified means to line up. So when a person says that I am justified, what are they saying? I'm in line with God. That's what the word means. I line up with Him. It is never that He lines up with me. It is always that I line up with Him. I need to get in line. I need to conform. This is how you get your prayer answered. This is how you know. This is the will of God. How do I know it's the will of God? Because I am in conformity to Him. Therefore, His will is my will. And not the other way around. His will, I make His will to be my will. The rabbi does not conform to the Talmud. The rabbi does not conform to the student. The student conforms to the rabbi. And this is how you pray in the will of God. Saying what? Eliyahu knew that God did not want it to rain, but he wanted Eliyahu to ask. So Eliyahu comes knowing that God does not want it to rain. He asks God to not make it rain. Guess what? It doesn't rain. He knew that God wanted to send fire down and destroy the sacrifice to Baal. He knows what the will of God is. He knew what the will of God is. There are times where you say, okay, but there are times when I don't know what the will of God is. What do I do there? Well, Rav Shol gives you the answer. When I do not know what to pray, I pray simply what? Your will be done. And he says that the Spirit knows what your prayer should be, and he what's the term? He moans, he groans within us for the will of God, saying what? That the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of God, knows what you should be praying for. Therefore, when you don't know what to pray for, He knows what you should be praying for, and He prays on your behalf. What do? I lose myself in the will of God and say, what? Your will be done. Your will be done. That is surrender. And that's where Yeshua was taking us from get me out of here to whatever your will is, I acquiesce to that. I surrender to that. And as I have frequently explained, the very first prayer that a Jewish man prays in the morning, called the Modeh Ani. Modeh Ani lefanecha melecha. And is usually translated as, I thank you, living King. But literally what it says is, I thankfully surrender before you. Lefanecha means before, to your face. Modeh is a smashing together of two words that mean both thankfulness and surrender. So the first thing that a Jewish man, an Orthodox Jewish man, prays in the morning is a prayer of submission. That he's submitting this day to the will of God. I thankfully surrender before you, living King, for you have restored my soul. Great is your faithfulness. Saying what? I trust you. I trust God. So what does all of this have to do with this? Well, that is the realm of the Tzaddik. Tzaddik, sorry I had to go over here because I wasn't going to hit this tonight. Then I said, well, I have to hit it because of Quph. Alright, so Tzaddik is where we get, this is the TZ sound, and this is where we get the word Tzaddik, means to hunt. We talked about this last week. Were y'all able to watch the video?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So to hunt, and that's what the symbol is here. It's a trap. Like you would catch a little animal. Okay. It's a rope, a circle, and you have the tail of the rope here in your hand, and the little animal. You put a little seed or something there. The animal gets in there. You pull the rope, and you trap the animal. So it's the idea. It also has the idea of fishing. To cast your line out there, to cast the net out. So the word tzaddik means to hunt. So we have the word tzaddik. We have the word tzaddik, and this is the term that is translated as a righteous man. So when you will hear somebody called a tzaddik. You'll hear famous rabbis, they're called, he was a great tzaddik, our great tzaddik, tzaddik gadol. Okay? We consider Yeshua to be a tzaddik. We consider Paul, Shaul, to be a tzaddik. These were righteous people. In Israel, they have a cemetery for Gentiles who sacrificed much for the Jewish people during the Holocaust and after, during the Israeli wars and such as this. And so Gentiles who made great sacrifices. And so they have a cemetery where these people may be buried in Israel if they desire so, or their family desires them to be buried in Israel. There are some who could not be buried there or what have you, and so they put monuments up there. And it is called the place of the righteous Gentiles. And so there are a lot of people from the Holocaust era and such as that who are buried on the Mount of Olives, who are buried there in Israel in the section for the righteous Gentiles, called Goyim Tzaddikim. Goyim, Gentiles, Tzaddikim, righteous. Okay? So this word tzaddik is the idea of being righteous. Now, what is righteous? Righteous is not too difficult to understand because its root is right. So the word righteous means to be right. Meaning what? Actually, it goes right along with justified. Justified means to be in line. It means to be right with God. How am I right with God? How am I right with God? I'm lined up with Him. I'm in line. It's kind of like a conduit, a water pipe. How does a water pipe work? It must be in line with the other water pipes. If the water pipe is out of line with the other water pipes, is the water going to flow? No. So if I have a water pipe coming down, and then I have another water pipe over here, they're not in line. Is the water going to flow? No. How does the water flow? I have to put it in line. I have to line up the water pipes. This is justified. Okay? So the same thing is true. How do I receive the blessings of God? I must line up with Him. If the water is going to flow, I must be in line. I'm the conduit. So if I'm going to be right, if I'm going to be a recipient of prayers answered and blessings and these kinds of things, then I must be in line with Him. If I'm out of line, the water's not going to flow. Now there may be a trickle, and I may get some dampness or what have you, but the water is not going to flow. Saying what? I must be right with Him. I must be right. with Him. I must be in line with Him. Saying what? How am I right with God? Well, there are two ways to be right with God. And it's not one or the other, it's both together. We call this plurality within unity. That there are two ways, but it takes both of them combined together to be right with Him. And this is what makes a tzaddik a tzaddik. To be right with Him, I must be conformed to His Torah, to His instructions. Okay? If I'm not conformed to His instructions, then what? I'm not justified, I'm not in line. I'm out of line. Okay? Today I was at some people's house and they broke the shower head off of their shower, where they're working at their house, and they accidentally broke the shower head off the shower. So the lady went and got another shower head, asked if I would put it on for her. So I took off the old piece of the shower head, the broken piece, I took it off. And she has one of these big, fancy, I don't know, $120 shower head, something or other, multiple gadgets on it and everything like that. And I'm looking at it like, okay. Because you know what happens if you put the shower head on wrong and you don't get all the attachments in their proper places, water shooting out, you know, where it's not supposed to. Thankfully, they had a little booklet inside the package called Instructions. Men are famous for not reading. I decided on this one occasion, I'm going to read the instructions and see how this thing works and put it together. So I read all the instructions first. Okay. I get the picture, I get the idea. Then I went back, and I had all of the pieces set out in front of me, read the instructions, okay, I see that, okay, I see that, okay, I see that. Then I went back, started assembling instruction by instruction. Okay, so then I went back and read this instruction. Okay, that's how that works. I put it together. Okay, that's how that works. I put it together. Okay, that's how that works. I put it together. This is Torah. Torah is instruction upon instruction. Teaching upon teaching. So, to be right, I must follow the instructions. If I don't follow the instructions, very simply, I'm wrong. Okay? In order to be right, I must follow the instructions. To not follow the instructions, I'm wrong. It's that simple. But there's a second part. Just following the instructions is not good enough. Why? Because God does not simply consider the outer actions. He also considers the attitude of the heart. And this is the duality. It's not good enough just that I am performing. Because the rabbis will tell you, a monkey can perform. A monkey can do. In fact, that is actually kind of the idea of Quph. Because the word Quph, the idea of Quph, it can mean holiness. We talked about last week. It can also mean monkey. It can mean holiness or it can mean monkey. Saying what? You have a choice of what you really are. Are you simply reenacting something? Or is this true holiness? What is true holiness? What makes righteousness? What makes righteousness is that I am doing the right thing for the right purpose with the right attitude. Because if I'm doing something, if I'm doing it right, but I've got a bad attitude about it, then what? Because you see, God knows my heart. He knows my thoughts. The scripture says that He is able to divide between the bone and the marrow. Saying what? He knows every indication. He knows what I'm thinking. He knows what I'm feeling. He knows if I'm doing this, I'm following these instructions truly out of the goodness of my heart, because I love him and I want to do the right thing by him. I want to honor him. Or he knows that I'm doing this grudgingly. I really don't want to do it, but it's there, so I'm going to do it anyway. He knows that I'm doing this. Okay, I'm going to do this and I'll look good in his eyes, and then he'll do all these kinds of things because now I'm lined up with it. And guess what? He sees that and he says, no, you're not lined up. You're actually still out of line. Because to line up with him is also to line up with his attributes. That is what? Kindness, mercy, love, fear, good judgment, wisdom, knowledge, understanding. Because this is what he uses to make determinations. Therefore, this is also what we should be using to make determinations. So, if I give to charity, if I give in some charitable way, the word tzedakah is the word that is translated as charity. Tzedakah comes from the word tzedek, tzadik, a righteous act. But I'm not doing it for the right reason. I've got $500 million, so I'm going to give $1 million to some charitable cause, and they'll put my name on the building or whatever, and everybody will see my name. And guess what? God says, well, you got your reward. Your name's on the building. But you don't get a reward for that in Olam Haba, in the world to come. You got your reward. Your reward is your name on the building. This is why when we give to charity, we're to be quiet about it. We're not to spread it around. We're not to talk about it. No one is to know. This is where the idea, do not let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. You're doing a good work. God sees it. That's all who needs to see it. It's between you and God. If you're going around sharing and bragging and talking about all these things that you're doing, that's not a charitable act. That is not tzedakah. That is not in righteousness. That is not justified. You're out of line. And so you're getting your reward by receiving the glory of the people who are listening to you tell your story. So in Judaism, the rule is this: you do not speak about what you have given to charity. You're not to make a big deal about it. You're not to make a big issue about it. You're to do it secretly and privately. You're not to get your name in all the papers and these kinds of things. So tzaddik, to hunt, the tzaddik is a hunter. As we talked about last week, how do you make tzaddik? You take tzaddik, there's a relationship, you take tzaddik, and you add the quph at the end. Tzaddik. Okay? So, tzaddik. Actually, there should be an I here. Tzaddik. You take tzaddik right here. You add a quph. And it becomes tzaddik. What is the representation of quph? So, quph. Hang on. So you have kadosh. Kadosh. This is tzaddik. This is usually spelled with a K, but because it's with a quph, we're going to give it the Q. Kadosh. Kadosh. What is kadosh? Holy. Saying what? You take a man and you make him holy. You take a man and you make him holy. This is why a righteous man is also called a holy man. A holy man. Because you've taken a man, and the way you make him righteous is you make him holy. How do you make a man holy? He lines up with the instruction of God. But not just lining up with the instruction of God, with the proper attitude, with the right heart. Because God looks at both. Now, Elijah, did he always have a good heart? Or were there times that he failed in this? Right after the rain, what happens? He hears that Jezebel is after him, wanting to kill him. And what does he do? I'm out of here. He got to Netzach, the test. And what does he say to God? Get me out of here. So rather than facing the test, he runs off. And he goes and he hides in a cave. You know the story, right? He hides by the brook, and God feeds him with the ravens. Interesting little question. The raven is an unclean bird. God's feeding this holy man with an unclean bird, bringing him morsels of meat and bread. Just something for you to think about. I won't give you any explanation. So, he faltered. This is what the scripture is talking about. Everybody falters. Everybody falls. It's like the song, right? Everybody falls sometime. Okay, everybody falls sometimes. Everybody. The only one who never fell is Yeshua, and he is the absolute righteous man. He is the absolute holy man because he never got out of line. He always was the centered conduit in line with the will of the Father. Remember these words? He says them frequently. I have come to do the will, what? Of the one who sent me. I did not come to do my own will. I came to do the will of the one who sent me. I do not speak my own words. I speak the words that the Father sent me to speak. He's always in line. He's always in line. So, you take the Quph and you add it to the tzaddik, and you come up with the tzaddik. You take a man, you put holiness in him, and now you have a tzaddik. You have a righteous man. How do you make a man holy? You line him up with God. And I keep saying, how do you make a person holy? How do you make a man holy? You line him up with God. Why am I saying this? Because this is the whole idea of tzaddik. Because tzaddik means what? Tzaddik means to hunt. Therefore, a tzaddik is a hunter of what? Of men. Or as Yeshua said to the Talmidim, as Yeshua said to the disciples, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. They were fishing for animals. They were fishing for fish. Right here. And Yeshua says what? If you follow me, I am a tzaddik. If you follow me, I will teach you to hunt for men. Why? Why for men? Because we are created B'Tselem Elohim. We are created in the image of God. Who is created in the image of God? Who's we?
Man.
All mankind. Every human being has worth and value. And we forget this. And this is Judaism 101 from the very beginning. Every human being has worth and value, and we must not forget that. I am not to look at other people down my nose through my justification and my righteousness. Because I have no standing. What do you mean I have no standing? I have no standing. Who am I? Who am I? I have no standing. The only standing I have is that I am the student, so to speak, I'm the Talmud of a righteous man, of a tzaddik, a holy man, Yeshua. He's my standing. Me? I'm fallen. I'm faulted. I'm frail. I make mistakes. I run away. I disobey. Sometimes I get out of line. In fact, the truth of the matter is this. If it were not for God's own intervention in my life, I could very well be that person. If God had not intervened in my life, and every person here can and should say that, if God had not intervened in my life, I could be there. Saying what? No one starts off to be an alcoholic. No one starts off to be a drug addict. No one starts off to be a prostitute or a hustler or whatever you want to say. No one starts off to be a criminal. What mother raises their child when their child is a baby in her arms? What mother says, oh, you're going to be such a beautiful prostitute someday? That this is the hope of the mother. What child starts off with these ideas and when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old starts off saying, when I grow up, I'm going to be an alcoholic. When I grow up, I'm going to be a deadbeat. When I grow up, I'm going to be a murderer. I'm going to be a thief. I'm going to be a this. I'm going to be that. No, when you ask a child, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, what do they say? When you grow up, what do you want to be? A fireman, a policeman, a doctor, a lawyer, the president, this and that. We all had those hopes and we all had those dreams. What happened? I never was a fireman, I never was a policeman, I never was a doctor, I never was a lawyer, and I never was president. All of my dreams down to 2, almost. I guarantee you that when those women walk in the streets, were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they did not imagine that for their life. When that guy is stumbling down the block, can't hardly find his way home, he did not start off that way. He got that way. And what I'm saying is, it could have happened to you and me. Therefore what? We are called to follow our tzaddik, Yeshua, who when he came across such people, rather than vindicating, or rather than humiliating them, rather than demonizing them and doing such, what did he do? What was his attitude to them? Compassion. Why? Because they are created B'Tselem Elohim. They are created in the image of God. Saying, what does this mean? Well, there are 10 attributes that are assigned to God. And when the scripture speaks of B'Tselem Elohim, when God said, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. This is what he was talking about, because God has no physical likeness, he has no human form. God is spirit. Yeshua says these words, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So what am I saying? I'm saying that they were created, this is what the rabbis teach, that man was created with these attributes of God within them. Saying what? They're in Malchut, everybody's in the kingdom. There are those who are citizens of the kingdom, but everybody's in the kingdom. Just like there are citizens of the United States, but everybody who's living in this territory is in the United States, correct? So we have what are called the Gerim. We have what are called, hi Norma? We have what are called the strangers in the midst. How are you doing? Sorry it took so long to get those back to me. But so there are the strangers in the midst. The term for that is a ger. The gerim. These are the people who are living in the land, but they're not Israel. So we have people living in this country who are not citizens. They are aliens. That's the term that is used, correct? They're aliens. Legal, illegal, whatever. They're aliens. This is the very term that the scripture uses. That there are aliens living among you. And so the kingdom is, because the kingdom is the entire universe. The kingdom is the entire world. This is the kingdom of God. But there are people who are not citizens of the kingdom. They're aliens. They're strangers in our midst. How did God command in Torah that the Ivrim, the Israelites, how were they supposed to treat the alien in their midst? As one of their own, with compassion, with love. And there was one law for both the alien, for both the stranger and the Israeli. And they were to treat those people, they were to treat the strangers in their midst with compassion. Therefore, how am I supposed to treat these people around me? With compassion. With compassion. Or what? The two great commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. All the Torah and all the prophets hang on these two commandments. That's what Yeshua said. To love my neighbor as myself. And they asked him, who is my neighbor? And he said, what? The story of the Good Samaritan, whom the Yehudim, the Jews, hated and despised. And they do to this day. There are still Samaritans. Samaritan Jews, they live in Israel. They never left. They're still there. But they live in their own isolated communities. They don't get along. What's the story? It's the Samaritan who actually treated the Jew with kindness and compassion. You know, oftentimes I find, whether it's in the Messianic community or in Christianity, that often it's the outsider who actually treats the Christian or treats the Messianic with the kindness, while we are in our righteous indignation and justified and all of these kinds of things, and we're judging people and condemning people and looking down our noses on people because they're not as good as I am. The truth of the matter is, no, I'm not as good as they are. Because I should realize my place. I should realize where I came from, and the only reason why I am here is because I was rescued. You see those pictures of rescued puppies, right? And they're all happy. They're adopted. They're going to somebody's home because they know what it's like to be abused and mistreated and such as that. They know what it's like to be alone, to be there in the pound or whatever. The same thing is true with human beings. So, this is what it means to be a tzaddik. We're a hunter. Hunter of what? Hunter of men. So, B'Tselem Elohim, what Judaism teaches is that every human being has a divine spark. The problem is that it hasn't been lit yet. It's lost. Every human being is created with the capability, with the ability. The problem is this: the switch has not been turned on yet. Somebody needs to turn the switch on. How do we turn the switch on?
Jesus.
In effect, yes. But how? How? It's not about talking. It's about living. It's about how I live. It's my lifestyle. What am I demonstrating to this person? You see, Yeshua lived out Torah. That's exactly what he said. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law. I did not come to abolish, but I came to the word fulfill, the Greek word there, to live it out. He is what we call the living Torah. He's our rabbi. We're the Talmud. We're walking in his footsteps. Halakha, to walk in the path. The book by the Ramchal, Rabbi Lusado, Derech Hashem, the way of God. To walk in his footsteps. To be what he is, what he was. To live how he lived. To speak the way he spoke. To treat people the way he treated people. To act the way he acted. To sacrifice the way he sacrificed. This is what it means. How do I? Because we are the ones who they were called shlachim. Everyone say shlachim. From shalach, meaning to send. It's the word that is translated apostle. The apostles. Literally, the word in Hebrew is shlachim. One who is sent out. An emissary. Do you remember Paul using these words? That we are emissaries? He says we are therefore now ambassadors. This is a shlachi. We are sent out. We have a mission. This is where we have the word what? Missionary. A missionary is simply a person with a mission. So, are we shlachim? Are we ones who have been sent out? What does Yeshua say? Go into all the world and give the gospel to every creature. Yes, we are shlachim. We have a mission. We have been sent out. But it's not just about preaching sermons and teaching classes and these kinds of things. That's all great. The information is necessary. But more importantly, is that I'm teaching, I'm instructing with my life the way a rabbi teaches his student with his life. This is why the student lived with the rabbi day and night, day after day after day, week, month, year. They're never separated. They're always together. Why? Because the Talmidim, the disciples, the students are studying the life of the rabbi. Not just listening to his words, but they're looking whether the words and the actions are congruent. Are they going together? Do they match? How does it justify line up? By the way, you've heard that term, right? How do you justify this? Saying what? How do you make it line up? So, what is my job? My job is to go to humanity and get the switch flipped on. How? By teaching? Yes. More? My life. To live mercy and compassion and love in front of these people. To make right judgments. To let them see my life lined up with God. To let them see me go through suffering sometimes and hardship and difficulty in a surrendered form. Not wrestling with God and in rebellion against Him and these kinds of things, but rather in a surrendered form, a willful surrendering of my will to His will. There they see, may they see Yeshua in me. You see, the whole idea is that I should appear as my rabbi appears. This is why in Judaism, when you have the different sects of Judaism, these different sects, this is why they all dress alike. So you have the Hasidim, right? The guys with the long black coats and the big fur hats, the Hasidim. Why do they dress like that? Because their rabbis dress like that, because their rabbis dress like that, because their rabbis dress like that, all the way to Russia. The reason for the big, if you look at pictures of Russians, a lot of people up there wear those big hats, those big fur hats. But they even wear them in Israel. This particular sect of the Hasidim wear them in Israel when it's 100 degrees and they still have their big fur hats on. And you say, that's insane. Not to them. Why not? Because this is the way their rabbi dressed. And that's the way his rabbi dressed before him, and that's the way his rabbi dressed before them, because they picked this up in Russia. Now, we say, well, those are traditions, and what does that have to do with me? Actually, a lot. I hear people say, well, the Talmud, it's just man-made instruction, and this kind of things, and we don't have to pay any attention to that. I'm not just be honest with everybody. You don't understand. You don't understand what the Talmud is about. One of the favorite stories that people pick out of the Talmud is, we've talked about this before, is how a Jewish man puts on his shoes, how a Hasid puts on his shoes, right? So how does a Jewish man put on his shoes? Well, so he's there without his shoes and socks. I'll leave my socks on. My toes aren't very free. So, need toenail polish. Anyway, so how does he put on his shoes and socks? Well, first he puts on his right sock. Then he puts on his left sock. Then he puts on his left shoe. And then he puts on his right shoe. Then he ties his right shoe. And then he ties his left shoe. So all of the Breslov Hasidim put on their shoes and socks this way. And people say, that's foolishness. What does God care about which shoe and sock I put on first, whether I tie this one first or that one first, put this on, put that on? What does it matter? What does it care? Who cares? This is just a man-made tradition. But you see, what is lacking is people don't understand what is being taught through this. Because here's the story behind it, as I've shared with some of you before. Here's the story behind it. There was a group of Talmidim, a group of disciples who loved their rabbi very, very much, very deeply. They were very close to him. They wanted to be exactly like him. They wanted to do everything the way he did it. So one of the students wondered out loud, how does Rabbi put on his shoes and socks? Because we want to put on our shoes and socks the same way he does. Because we want to be exactly like him. So they went to Rabbi and they asked him, Rabbi, tell us, how do you put on your shoes and socks? So the rabbi said, well, first I put my right sock on. Then I put my left sock on. Then I put my left shoe on. And then I put my right shoe on. Then I tie my right shoe. And then I tie my left shoe. And voila, I have my shoes and socks on. So what did the Talmidim start doing? They put on their left sock, or right sock, then their left sock. Their left shoe, then their right shoe. They tied their right shoe, then they tied their left shoe. And now, for over 200 years, this group of Hasidim put on their shoes and socks this way. Before you say that that's foolishness, I will say to you this. This is exactly the way we are supposed to feel about being the Talmidim of Yeshua Mashiach. How much do you really want to be like him? Because that's what the expression, that's what the teaching is. It's not about putting on your shoes and socks. It's about how much do you want to be like your rabbi. How close do you really want to affiliate? You see, this is why they all dress the way they dress, because this is the way their rabbi dressed. Therefore, they want to dress, they want to have the appearance he has. This is why Chabad, they follow their rabbis, the Lubavitchers. They follow them. They follow the Schneerson family. And so what? How did they dress? How did their rabbis dress? Well, they dressed in black suits, black pants, white shirt, black tie, and the black, what do you call it? Hat. Yes. Now, a lot of people would look at this and say, well, this is foolishness. No. Actually, they're closer to it than the people who think it's foolishness. Because they understand. They understand what they're doing. What are they doing? They are mimicking their rabbi even to the point of how I dress, how I act, how I talk, everything. The way I look, I want them, when they look at me, when you see a Chabad, when you see a member of Chabad, there's no doubt in your mind, you know that that person is a member of Chabad. When you see a Breslov, there's no doubt in your mind, you know that that person is a Breslov. When you see a Chassid, there's no doubt in your mind, you know that that person is a Chassid. When the people see you and see me, what? This is what it is. This is what we call conformity. Now, I'm no style setter here. No trends with me. Okay? No trends with me. So, I keep my beard long, I keep my hair long. I do not sit here and insist that people who come here, who follow me, should be dressing like this and these kinds of things. I'm just explaining to you, this is the way of Jewish thought. This is the way of the rabbi and his students. You see, when a Christian says that they are a follower of Jesus, compared to where a Jewish person says that they are a follower of such and such a rabbi, total polarity here. Yitzhak Shapira said, I listened to one of his videos the other day, and they were discussing the Shema. Because most people will say, you know, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. The word Shema does not simply mean hear. It means hear to obey. In other words, I will listen, I will hear, and I will do. Rabbi Shapira made the comment, when most people say something like that, well, I'll do what God wants me to do. What they really mean is, I'll do what God wants me to do if I like it. If it's what I choose. The Jewish mindset is completely different. The Hebrew thought process is completely different from that. To be a follower of Yeshua means exactly that, to follow him. To walk in his footsteps means exactly that, to walk in his footsteps, saying, well, how he lived, I live. What he spoke, I speak. How he thought, I think. His emotions, my emotions. This is full surrender. Giving up my will for his will. In the Jewish thought process, it's to the extent of how he dressed, I will dress. There will be no doubt who my rabbi is in the eyes of the people. We think of Israel in the days of Yeshua. Everybody wearing their robes, right? They're different styles, they're different, their robes, you know, and all these kinds of things. And you know the flannel-graph pictures or what you've seen at the movies or on television and everything like that. Let me tell you something. Even in the days of Yeshua, everybody could tell who was who. You knew who the Sadducees were, the Sadducees. You knew who the Prushim were, the Pharisees. You knew if they came from the house of Hillel or the house of Shammai. You knew who the Essenes were. You knew who everybody was. How? Because of what they were wearing. Just like today. You go up into Amish country, you can tell who the Amish are. There's no doubt. And you can tell if they're related to the Amish. You can tell if they're Mennonites by the way they're dressing. I can see a person who's a Mennonite. I can spot a Mennonite in a crowd. You can spot an Amish person in a crowd. You know that they're Amish. exclusively by how they dress. You can actually even tell whether they are Old Order or New Order Amish. New Order meaning that they are fairly modern, that is, that they ascribe to the dress styles of the 1930s, that's New Order. Or Old Order, that they're from still the 18th and 19th century dress styles. You can tell by the color of the ribbon on their hats as to what family of the Amish they come from, what particular branch of the Amish religion they come from. All simply by their dress. The sad thing is that we can look at Messianics and we can look at Christians around us and you would never know the difference. You cannot see a thing. Why? Because the truth of the matter is most of us do not live like our rabbi. The truth of the matter is that for most, we're not even close. Why? Because our heart is not in it. So we pick and choose. Okay, I'll obey this one, I won't obey that one. I pick this one, I don't pick that one. So, my job and your job as shlachim is to go out and find the lost sparks of the divine and get them to turn on. What is that? Well, let's trade words. Instead of sparks, let's say souls. My job is to find lost souls and flip the switch. Another way that we could put it, flipping the switch, make it click. How many of you have had aha moments in this class? It clicked. Boom, something. Oh, I got that. That's my job, is to make things click with you. But remember how we started out this class. You are not here simply to learn, because absorbing knowledge is worthless. It's a worthless ambition. It's a worthless pursuit. You are here for two purposes. You are here to learn in order to do, and you are here to learn in order to teach others to do. My responsibility is to learn so that I can turn around and teach you. To learn for myself to do so that I can turn around and teach you to do. Why? Because you see, people are watching me. They listen to my words and they watch my life. And they see, they're looking to see, to check, is it congruent? Saying what? He's talking about this. Is he this? Not just with his words, but in his attitude and his actions. Saying what? Is he showing compassion? Is he showing humility? Is he showing love? Is he understanding that every human being is created with the potential and not picking and choosing? Remember Samuel, he tried to pick and choose, right? And every time he picked, right or wrong choice, he's got Yesse's sons, he's got Jesse's sons lined up in front of him, right? And Shmuel's going down the line, right? This one looks like a king. A lot of Christians do that, a lot of Messianics, well, that looks like a good person there, if only you knew. As the old country song says, No one knows what goes on behind closed doors.
These days, people don't even wait for closed doors sometimes.
But the point is this, what? We're judging by outward appearances. And we're trying to make judgments and determinations. No, I'm to treat every person the same. How? As I myself would want to be treated. If I were that person, and you were approaching me with the good news, how would I want you to approach me? Like it's good news. Not like it's bad news. It's called Besorah, good news, for a reason. Besorah is the Hebrew word gospel, good news. It's the good news for a reason. And it should be good news to the people to whom we bring it. It should appear good to them. It should appear fantastic. It should appear wonderful. When Bnei Israel, when the children of Israel saw the Shekhinah divide in two and the Malach, Elohim, the angel of God, come out, and the darkness went back and covered the Egyptian army, and the fire went to the front and led the way, and the sea parted. How did that appear to them? Was that an uh-oh moment or an all-right moment? You see what I'm saying? And when they got to the other side, what did they do? They broke out in this. Did y'all watch the video I posted? Huh? This guy's jumping.
Oh, yeah.
That was crazy. The hipsters. That was crazy. They started out dancing. They broke out into singing. Rejoicing. When we bring the Besorah to the people around us, does it appear as good news to them? Does it appear as though God is coming down to break upon them, to defend them, to take up their cause and part the waters on their behalf? Is that our message? Or do we have another message? We'll follow our rabbi. Because the people flocked to him. How? By the hundreds and thousands. And they loved him. Why? Because he brought them what? He quotes Isaiah. He brought them the message of the tiding of good news that the peace of God had come. What's our message? What's our message? Now, I understand, and we're going to close. I understand that God is a God of judgment. And He is, and He's just. And yes, we should be warned. But you see, too many times, in both Christianity and in Messianicism, too many times we go to the extremes. Do you remember how many pillars there are on the tree line? Anybody remember? Three pillars. So you have three pillars on the tree of life, and all the attributes are on one of these pillars. So the left pillar is called the pillar of judgment. And the right pillar is called the pillar of kindness, mercy. Chesed. The middle pillar is called the pillar of direct access. And on these three pillars hang the 10 attributes, the 10 Sephirot. Being Malchut, kingdom, Yesod, foundation, Netzach, victory, Chod, glory, Tiferet, beauty, Chesed, mercy, Bina, judgment, I'm forgetting, Chokhmah, wisdom. No, Bina is up here, knowledge. Anyway, but this is the judgment side. This is the mercy side. So, what is taught about the tree of life? You don't go up just one pillar. We say that this is Father. We say that this is Mother. Representing. Because usually who's the disciplinarian of the family? The father. Who's the one that shows the love and the kindness? The poor child? The mother. Right? If all you have is this, if you're just going up this side, and all you have is this, discipline, 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 discipline. You step out of line, and pow. You step out of line, pow. You step out of line, pow. How does that child grow up?
Same way. Anger.
Anger. By the way, in the Brit Chadashah, in the New Testament, Paul warns us not to do this to our children. Do not be too severe on them.
Fathers, provoke your children.
Do not provoke your children to wrath. And that's what this is about. But the same is also true here. If you just go straight up this side, mercy, 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 grace, 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 love, love, love. Saying what? If the mother, if it's just the mother who's always doting on the child, always giving into the child, never really disciplining the child or any of these kinds of things, it's just this, kindness, kindness, mercy, 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 mercy. How does that child grow up? Spoiled. Are either of these the optimum of children? No.
No.
You do not want this child, nor do you want this child. Therefore, what you have to have, you must have balance. Therefore, it is not grace, it is grace and justice. It is not mercy, it is mercy and judgment. It's not just love. It's love and holiness. Not hate, holiness. Saying what? There must be a balance. This is the way God views us. He is back and forth on these. Does God pour out all of His judgment on you and me? No. But does He only pour out mercy and grace on us? No. He uses both. The same is true with us. We are to be in the image of our Creator. We are to live in His likeness. Therefore what? There must also be balance in my life. Saying that, I'm not saying that you just pour out love and grace and mercy and love and grace and mercy. It's all about love, 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 love. No. That is an imbalanced approach, and it gets people in trouble. In fact, a lot of people are going to face God with the wrong idea of God, and they're going to be very overturned. They're going to be very confused when they find out that it's not just all about love, grace, and mercy. But the other side is also true. Because you see, you can go to this extreme, you can also go to this extreme. And this extreme is not good either. It's the balance. It is the detesting of the wrongdoing. But before I can detest your wrongdoing, I must first detest my wrongdoing. Saying what? Okay. So, this is the big issue. It's all over the place. And churches are fighting over it, and people are arguing about it and everything like this. And there are churches that are coming back hard on it, hard on it, hard on it, hard on it, hard on it. I understand. According to Torah, what is the penalty for this? According to Torah, what is the penalty for this?
Death.
Death. I'm not saying to go out and kill people. Actually, I'm going to show you something else. Okay, we're not rounding up a stoning committee here. Let me show you something else. What about this one?
Death.
It's the same penalty, is it not? Same what? It is at the same level. God considers these two to be the same type of sin.
The wages of all sin is death.
Yes, but we're talking, what does the Torah say? Because the Torah says that, for example, if I steal, I'm not put to death. I must pay restitution, and I must pay 7 to 10 times what I took. I must restore what I took and pay a fine on top of that. For this is the penalty by Torah. For this is the penalty by Torah. What am I saying? What I'm saying is God actually looks at both of these as the same type of sin. They are equal. But we hear this.
Right.
We don't hear so much this. I'm going to tell you something. There's a lot of this going on. But it's not spoken to. You see, where are the big protesters? There's a lot of protestation about this going on. Where's the protestation about this going on? Do you know why this goes on? It's not taught and it's not preached about.
Pick and choose.
Pick and choose. Pick and choose. Okay? Use another example. Growing up in the group I grew up in, flames of hell right there. You want the proof? Flames of hell? Huh? Take a glass of whiskey and put a match to it and see what happens.
Goes up.
You do this stuff, you're probably going to hell because you're not saved at all. You can't be saved and be doing things like this. And I heard hundreds, I heard thousands of messages that, boy, loaded for bear. And I heard preachers preach on that. They weighed 400 pounds. You know what they never preached on? Never. Never. In my whole life, I heard maybe 2 sermons on gluttony and food. But I sure heard this one. People say, well, alcohol, it destroys lives. Some, not everybody. Not everybody. But you know what? This also destroys lives. I know. I have a man who's a very dear friend of mine. And he preached against this. He never preached about this. And this was his problem. He had diabetes. He had 5 stents put in his heart. But he could not control this. And he killed him. Killed him. But you won't hear that preached today. Why am I telling you that? Same thing. We want to pick and choose. And this is why I asked you. Before you can condemn that person for their sin, you must first condemn yourself, brother. Before I can condemn this one, I've got to be certain about this one too. Before I throw condemnation about this, well, what about this? This is why we are told we're not here. Yeshua himself said, I did not come into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. That's the issue. I am here to bring the good news of the gospel of Yeshua Mashiach to a lost and dying world. I am here to find the sparks, to find the souls, and flip on the switch. And I am to do it in a compassionate, careful, tender, gentle way, the same way that Yeshua operated. That's the way it's supposed to work. So with that, we say, Shalom.